Got a couple items of housekeeping, I should say. I have an article here about churches that have disaffiliated from the United Methodist Church, and it's 6,255 since 2019, and it's broken out by annual conference. Pass that around. All right. Takes care of that. Somebody asked a question at the end of class last week about Michael and Lucifer, Satan, arguing over the body of Jesus. So I thought I would go home and do a little research. It is in Jude, the 9th verse. You can take whichever chapter you want there in Jude, but it's always the 9th verse. Even as Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities about them in like manner, giving themselves over to fornication and going after strange flesh, are set forth for an example, suffering the vengeance of eternal fire. Likewise also these filthy dreamers defile the flesh, despise dominion, and speak evil of dignities. Yet Michael, the archangel, when contending with the devil, he disputed about the body of Moses, durst not bring against him a railing accusation, but said, The Lord rebuke thee. But these speak evil of those things which they know not, but what they know naturally as brute beasts, in those things they corrupt themselves. So I went home and got my commentaries out so that I could be diligent and really help you, okay? Here's my commentaries. Barclay thinks that if the greatest of the good angels refuse to speak evil of the greatest of the evil angels, then surely no human being may speak evil of any angel. Now, the reason I'm stooping over reading today is because of my intellectual capabilities. I have found a technique in which I can squeeze more information into a sheet of paper. And how you do that is you make the distance between the lines shrink. So, old John ran out of paper, as you can see. And so he reduced the distance between them, and now it's so small I can't hardly read. This getting old business isn't all it's cracked up to be. All right. Adam Clark comments this way on Jude 9. It is to be observed that the word archangel is never found in the plural number in the sacred writings. There can properly only be one archangel, one chief or head of all the angelic hosts. Nor is the word devil, as applied to the great enemy of mankind, ever found in the plural. There can be but one monarch of all fallen spirits. Michael is this archangel and head of all the angelic orders. The devil, great dragon, or Satan is head of all the diabolical orders. When these two hosts are opposed to each other, they are said to act under these two chiefs as leaders. Hence, in Revelations 12:7, it is said, Michael and his angels fought against the dragon and his angels. The word Michael seems to be compounded of who is like El, God, and he who is like God. Hence, by this personage in the Apocalypse, which would be Revelation, many understand the Lord Jesus, disputed about the body of Moses. Now, this was the phrase I wanted you to really catch. What this means, I cannot tell, or from what source St. Jude drew it, unless from some tradition among his countrymen. There is something very like it in the Debarim Rabbah. Now, does that help you any? Thank you. Samael, that wicked one, the prince of the Satans, carefully kept the soul of Moses, saying, when the time comes in which Michael shall lament, I shall have my mouth filled with laughter. Michael said to him, wretch, I weep and thou laughest. Rejoice not against me, O mine enemy, because I have fallen, for I shall rise again. And when I sit in darkness, the Lord is my light. Micah 7:8. By the words, because I have fallen, we must understand the death of Moses by the words, I shall rise again, the government of Joshua, etc. Another contention of Michael with Satan is mentioned in the Yalkut Rabbini. And I struck out the references to the exact page and paragraphs, so I hope you'll forgive me for that. At this time, it is in which Isaac was bound, there was a contention between Michael and Satan. Michael brought a ram that Isaac might be liberated, but Satan endeavored to carry off the ram that Isaac might be slain. The contention mentioned by Jude is not about the sacrifice of Isaac, nor the soul of Moses, but about the body of Moses. And here we're getting to somewhere. Why and wherefore we know not. Some think the devil wished to show the Israelites where Moses was buried, knowing they would then adore his body, and that Michael was sent to resist that discovery. Obviously, if they were to discover where he was buried, they would make his grave an idol, and that was to be prevented. Any questions or comments? That's the best I can do. Yes, sir.
Evidently, Satan knows where Moses is buried.
I get the drift of that. Yes. Yes. I had one person call me in the middle of the week and ask me where that scripture was found so he could do research, but I won't mention who it was. Okay. Any other comments or questions?
Matthew Henry had a comment too on that.
And what did he say?
He said, some think that the devil contended that Moses might have a public and honorable funeral, that the place where he was buried might be generally known, hoping thereby to draw the Jews so naturally prone there to a new and fresh instance of idolatry.
Okay. Commentators that agree. Okay. Yes, sir.
Just, all we know about Moses really is, he didn't get to go into the promised land. He went up on, I forget the name of the mountain. So
Pisgah.
Yeah, but he did make it into the promised land during the transfiguration. And his body is perishable like all of our bodies, but his spirit, soul, I presume, went to paradise or into heaven.
Mm-hmm. But that was a very appropriate for last Sunday's lesson, because we were talking about Moses and the transition to Joshua there. So if I had been studied up, I would have had an answer last week, but I wasn't smart enough. All right. This week we are talking about Jericho. Jericho. Okay. Now we're going to talk about this later, but this is to give you a visual of what we're talking about. Now notice on the bottom picture is a picture of Jericho. It's kind of built on a mound, okay? And if you're an archaeologist, you can dig into that mound and you can find layers of civilizations, okay? And so we'll talk about that later on. There's a picture of the walls, okay? Picture of the walls. Those walls were built on, I'll get my notes out here. There's two walls, 6 foot thick, built on 12 to 15 foot retaining bank. Then the brick walls that are 20 to 26 feet above that. So if you were an Israelite person that was walking around the city, you would notice that you had walls that was 40 plus feet high. Okay? And not only that, but if you step back so you could look over wall number 1, there was wall number 2 that was up an embankment up a little ways, and it was up 40 foot high. So what's your chances of getting into the city? 0. Okay? And the gates were closed and they were strictly guarded. So there was no way anybody was getting in or getting out. So let's read in our Sunday school lesson then. The Lord said unto Joshua, See, I have given unto thine hand Jericho and the king thereof, and the mighty men of valor. Ye shall compass the city, all ye men of war, and go about the city once. Thus shalt thou do 6 days. And 7 priests shall bear before the ark 7 trumpets of ram's horns, and the 7th day ye shall compass the city 7 times, and the priests shall blow the trumpets. Okay, so we're talking about the taking of Jericho. How far was Jericho from the Jordan River?
5 miles.
Approximately 5 miles. Yeah, you must have studied the same book I did. All right. So they crossed over the Jordan. What was the problem with the Jordan River? It was flooded. And so the people had to figure out a way to get through the flooded Jordan. Okay. And so we read, where was it we read that? I think it was Joshua said, Hereby shall ye know that the living God is among you, and that he will without fail drive out before you the Canaanites, the Hivites, and the Hittites, and the Perizzites, and the Girgashites, and the Amorites, and all the rest of the ites. Okay? And when we're talking about Joshua now crossing the Jordan, he needed a way to get the people across. And what technique did he use?
Walk through on dry ground.
Oh, well, I guess that's not a problem if it's flooded, if you walk on dry ground, then, is it? All right. How did he get the ground to be dry? Nope, you're in the wrong book, lady. Yeah, you're talking about Moses. Okay? And now that's an interesting thought, though, Eileen, because if you think about these people are 40 years plus a little bit, plus a few months, I suppose, thinking about comparing to the time when Moses wanted to bring them into the land of Canaan. Okay? When they wanted to come into the land of Canaan under Moses, what was the circumstances of the mood of the people? I'm going to be generous here. What did the people want to do?
Complain.
They wanted to complain. What did they want to complain about? And why did they want to go back?
Life was more luxurious back there. Even though they were slaves.
They lost their cushy slave jobs.
There's lack of food.
No meat.
Lack of meat, yeah.
You guys are really helping me out here. They said there's giants in the land. Okay? And yeah, the fruit is good and it is a land of milk and honey, but we can't do it because we're not able. And so we're going to whine and bellyache all night about it. Okay? Because they didn't trust who? God. All right? So now we're talking about Joshua. Change gears on you. Sandy and I have this habit of changing conversations in the middle of sentences, and I wish I could say it was her fault, but I've listened to the guy talking to her, and I've seen him do it a few times too. We change topics in the middle of the sentence and go on. So now we're talking about Joshua. Joshua is now needing to cross the Jordan River, and he tells them to get ready to go, and he says, when you load up the ark and you go stand in the middle of the Jordan, what's going to happen? The waters are going to be cut off and they're going to stack up. Now that would have been an amazing sight to see the waters coming in and stack up. But they crossed on dry land. Crossed on dry land, what was the command that was given to Joshua to the people? Choose you out 12 men of one of each tribe, and you get a stone, okay? And you take the stone out and you put it to, and you carry it to where you're going to lodge. And you pile them up, and then when you pile them up, this may be assigned to you, that when your children ask their fathers in time to come, saying, what mean ye by these stones? That your children ask their fathers in time to come, saying, what? Oh, sorry. Parkinson's causes me to repeat stuff sometimes on the sheet while I'm typing. Matter of fact, stuff gets all out of whack everywhere, so you just tolerate me for a while.
That's all okay.
But what was the purpose? The purpose was to take the stones to make a memorial, so that when the children asked, what were they to say? They were to say that God delivered them. He dried up the Jordan River and permitted them to go through and have a safe journey through the Jordan River. It was to be a memorial. Now, my question that comes to me, have your children asked about your significant acts of piety? In other words, have you made a memorial somewhere that is significant so that you can be a blessing to your children and to others? Then Joshua in the 4th chapter said that all the people of the earth might know that the hand of the Lord, that it is mighty, that ye might fear the Lord your God forever. What was the purpose of that? That the people of the earth would know that God is mighty. All right, so now here we have the children of Israel. They're over the Jordan River, and what takes place next? We're getting ready to do battle now. Keep this in mind. We're ready to do battle. God said, Joshua, circumcise the boys. Now, how would that affect your battle plan? That would put you extremely vulnerable. And who would it make vulnerable to that situation? Everyone. Okay? So here we are, getting ready to do battle, and we got to wait till everybody heals up so that we can continue on. Okay? So they all heal up, and what takes place next? They celebrate the Passover. What is the purpose of Passover? That's what?
To remember the Passover.
Which says what?
God's provision again.
Yes. What was Passover?
God's deliverance from Egypt, from the taskmaster.
That's part of it.
Death angel.
Death angel.
Pass over the houses with the red
That had the blood.
paint.
If you had the blood applied on the sides of the door and on the top, the death angel would pass over. Okay? What is that symbolic of? That the death angel of sin will pass over if the blood has been applied to your heart and to mine. Okay, so now we got Passover. It's barley harvest time. Okay? What time of year would that be? Well, that would be like April time frame back there. So here we are, we're at barley harvest time, and it's time to go and to do the battle plan. What's the battle plan that God tells Joshua to do? March around the city. Boy, that'd scare you, wouldn't it? Now, if you were an Israelite soldier that was walking around and you're looking up at 40-foot walls, figuring out how I'm going to try to get up there, and then you step back and see there's another wall, you see you got a lot to accomplish. And so here you are marching around. How far around was that city? About a half to 3/4 of a mile. Correct. 2,000 or so people that lived there in the city, plus probably the surrounding towns that were scared of what in the world was going to happen because this big army of people were coming in. So they marched around the city. How did they march? They put all their muscle men first, their warriors. No. Priests first, doing what? They were blowing on their horns, their ram horns, but they were carrying the ark, okay? And then came the mighty men, okay? And then came the rear guard, okay? And the rear guard was told to say nothing. So they walked without a word all around the city. Well, if it's only a half mile to 3/4 of a mile, even old handicapped here can do that, and it wouldn't take so very long for that to accomplish, okay? And so they did that, and they went back to their place, all right? They did that for 6 days. Now, who's being terrified in this case? The people of Israel or the Jerichoites? Why would they be scared? There's no way they could get in.
Because it was peculiar.
Maybe the Israelites had a reputation.
Like, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking they just walked across a river, so that's a little strange.
Well, yeah, that would be. What was it? Did I not read that? I didn't read that, did I? When they went across the Jordan, what happened to the Amorites and to the others? Their hearts melted and fainted within them. So they were terrified because there was something going on here that was bigger than what human efforts and human abilities could perform. Okay? And if I was to summarize the Sunday school lesson in about 2 or 3 sentences, it would be, there's no way the battle plan could work unless God did something. And God set it up so there was no way man could take credit for anything. That's my Sunday school lesson. You want to go home now? All right. All right.
Ahab had reported earlier that the Jerichoites were feared because of what God had done for Israel.
Yes, that is correct. That is correct. All right. We get to the 7th day. Let us read. And Joshua rose early in the morning because it was time change, and the priests took up the ark of the Lord. And 7 priests bearing 7 trumpets of ram's horn. According to what I read was they used ram horns to make signals to warn people or whatever. They were not for concerts, okay? They didn't have the ability to harmonize with other instrumentation, but they were to signal. Okay. And then they talked about who was there. And the 2nd day they compassed the city once and returned into the camp. So did they 6 days. And it came to pass on the 7th day that they rose early about the dawning of the day and compassed the city after the same manner 7 times. Only on that they compassed the city. Come on, John, read. And it came to pass on the 7th time, when the priests blew the trumpets, Joshua said unto the people, Shout, for the Lord hath given you the city. Okay? They were to keep their mouth shut until he told them to speak. And then when he says, and I'll give you the order, and when they blew the trumpets, he said, shout, for the Lord hath given you the city. And then he goes on to describe here a little bit about the circumstances of the city. The city shall be accursed, even it and all that are therein, to the Lord. Only Rahab the harlot shall live, she and all that are with her in the house, because she hid the messengers that we sent. And ye in any wise keep yourselves from the accursed thing, lest ye make yourselves accursed when ye take of the accursed thing and make the camp of Israel accursed and trouble it. All silver and gold, vessels of brass and iron, are consecrated unto the Lord. They shall come into the treasure of the Lord. So the people shouted. And when the priests blew the trumpets, and it came to pass, when the people heard the sound of the trumpet, and the people shouted with a great shout, the wall fell down. Now, it is interesting to note that where's Eli? If you study the Greek behind it, the walls fell down meant that they fell out. All right. How far is the picture around of the walls? All the way back? All right. Now, what happened when the walls fell? The walls fell out. Therefore, making a ramp for all the soldiers to go up and into the city.
They must have not surrounded the walls real tight then, huh? When they walked around the city.
Yeah, true.
What? No,
No, because they would have had to stay back 40 feet at least without the current.
well, when they collapsed, it wouldn't be all 40 feet. It would be the square root of the sine of 30 degrees. Never mind. Man, it's been a long time since I talked about that kind of stuff. I used to teach that stuff, so that's kind of intriguing to me. Anyhow, but the walls fell out, okay? And the soldiers went up and they took the city. What did they do as soon as they took the city? What?
Oh, I'm not confident in my answer, but did they kill everyone?
They killed everyone, exactly. They killed everything, not everyone, everything. And then what'd they do? They burnt the city. Okay?
Why would they do that?
Why would they do that?
Correct.
They were to get rid of everything.
So they're basically rebuilding from scratch.
Silver and gold.
What about it?
They confiscated the silver and gold first.
What'd they do with it?
Put it in
Put
temple.
it in the
Yeah,
treasure.
that went into the treasury.
They didn't burn it.
They didn't burn that, correct. Of course, if you were a chemist, you had said they couldn't have burned it in the first place.
Melted.
There you go. You're getting closer. They probably did do that. They did do that. Okay. Any moral or ethical issues here?
Keep something.
The babies.
What?
The innocent were also killed, but because they were part of that group of people.
Well, didn't God always tell us to rest on the seventh day? And they went in and did that. So wouldn't they then maybe have to pray that day too?
Well-
God tells you to do it, you're still allowed to.
No, you're still allowed to do it.
There are many people that have issues and difficulties with the people being wiped out, especially since he made the rules that thou shalt not kill. And especially since he made rules that says thou shalt keep the Sabbath day holy. Okay? How do you reconcile what is taking place with the Ten Commandments?
They didn't do it on Sunday.
All right, well, that's easy enough. They didn't do it on Sunday. And the reason they didn't do it on Sunday is because they didn't have Sundays back then. Thank you, Terry. They had Sabbath days, though.
Intermarriage too, with the community was restricted. I mean, the Israelites would have been consecrated as God wanted them to be had they intermarried.
Well, intermarriage came about later on. That wasn't a problem at this particular time. We're talking about them being wiped out. And how can God wipe out a people, okay? In this case, the city, huh?
He's done it before.
I understand that, but we're trying to explain how that can be reconciled into.
Because of their iniquity.
All right, elaborate, please.
There are different times when God would, sometimes he would say because of the iniquity, like Sodom and Gomorrah,
Right.
totally destroy it. There were other times when he would pass judgment on them, which might not necessarily kill all of them.
Okay, and he did that to Israel as well as to other nations, right?
He said because of the tribes, all the ites that were in, because their iniquity had come to the point where it was too much. Yeah,
when Abraham was going up and down the land of Israel, God did not give to Abraham and to his seed those people at that particular time. He says the cup of the Amorites is not yet full. Okay, so the bottom line is the iniquity of the people of the land of Canaan hadn't gotten to the point where God felt justified to destroy them for iniquity's sake. People, that should be a lesson to us and our nation as we're progressing in the direction that we're progressing in ever so rapidly, is that God will only take so much before he will wipe us out. And he has done that over numerous situations. All right. So, all right, you've listened about fast enough and I need to finish, okay? So, here's what I want to talk about. We talked about the context of Joshua. The Jordan was flooded. It was a time of barley harvest. They kept the Passover. God requires circumcision. The battle plan was to walk around the city. And then what was required of the soldiers? They were to save the gold and the silver and the bronze. No one was to live. The city was to be burned and left uninhabited. No one was to profit from the battle. What was the result? If the victory was to be had, there was no way any man could take credit except God would bring the victory. And it demonstrated that Joshua and the people demonstrated obedience to the commands that was there for. Therefore, all nations knew the victory was due to Israel's God. All nations. All right. Joshua was exalted in stature among the people and nations. So, what was God trying to accomplish? God was trying to accomplish the fact that he was a mighty God to all the nations of the earth. It is your job and my job and our responsibility to live in a manner so that God can bring miraculous events into our lives, and through our spiritual piety and love of worship, etc., that the world will know, that all the people of the earth might know the hand of the Lord is mighty, and that you might fear the Lord your God forever. And then in Zechariah, man, you guys are listening slow. He says, then he answered and spake unto me, saying, this is the word of the Lord unto Zerubbabel, saying, not by might nor by power, but my spirit, saith the Lord. All right, so that was what God was trying to accomplish. All right, now let's jump down to the 1900s AD. All right, in 1900 AD, in about 1400 BC, okay? No. Come on, John, find it. 1930 to 36. They did a dig in Jericho and dug into the tell, or to find the different civilizations, and what they found was some interesting things. That where the current Jericho is, it is also the ancient Jericho, and which was possibly the oldest city in the world. The bricks fell outward according to the dig, okay? There was a burn layer. There was found full jars of barley, indicating it wasn't a long siege and that it was harvest time. There was an abandoned layer, and on top of that, there was an Israelite occupation layer. Okay? Now, that was things that was agreed upon. There's been like 3 or 4 different digs that's taken place. The first one was done, like I said, in 30 to 36, and that guy established that it was approximately 1400 BC when Jericho would have been destroyed, which just happens to match with what the scripture says. All right. Now, along comes a woman. That should tell you something. But politics played a part here too. Between 1952 and 1958, she did a different dig. And Jericho was now under the control of Jordan. Remember, Israel had become a state in 1948, so now this portion of the land belonged to the Jordan. She was not a Christian, and she determined through a lack of existence of Cyprus pottery, that's a hard word, isn't it? That because of that, it couldn't be at 1400 BC, it had to be 1550 BC, 150 years difference. If you move 150 years difference, then there was no walls to fall down, and no Joshua to be there, no scripture to be confirmed, and so she set aside all of that with her dealings. Currently, there is a dig going on by Italian people, and the Palestinians control Jericho now, and they are taking some of the existing digs and they're filling them up with dirt. You understand the problem with archaeologists is when they dig, what do they do with the dirt? Because if you put the dirt in the wrong place, you're going to have to redig the dig. You follow me? So what they're doing, though, is they're digging and they're filling in, covering up existence of evidence that demonstrate that the Jericho and the Joshua of the Bible is true. And so they're doing that as now. All right. I've told you all I know and made up a little. Questions and comments?
The promise to Rahab was kept.
The promise to Rahab was kept. Yep. And Joshua said to who? To the 2 young guys that went to be spies. You go in and you find her. And who were they to save? She and all her household.
That were in the house.
That were in the house. Yes. Right. Good point. Because that was a stipulation, right? And how were they to know where Rahab was?
The red
Scarlet rope that was in the window to indicate where she was. And according to the picture, you can't see it very well, but they have also found that there are housing units that were built into the walls in the top part of the city or something. So it all fits in there together.
So that wall didn't crumble there then, evidently, where her house was.
Probably not, but it didn't need to at that particular point for the soldiers to accomplish what they wanted. All right. Other comments or questions?
So there were 2 walls, an outer wall and an inner wall.
Right. Right. Which forced the people of Israel to trust God more, that he was going to be able to deliver the city to them like he promised. And old Joshua, he set his face to accomplish this task that God had given him, and he never looked back. He just moved forward and continued on. And I would guess that his leadership in that way helped generate weaker faiths to be stronger and encourage them to do what they needed to do so that God could be honored in the long run. Now, my question to you is, have you had any Jerichos? Had any walls that were big that needed to be climbed? Had any walls that God has brought down to honor himself? We can honor God if we will be obedient and trust him to lead us in ways that maybe we don't understand, but ways that he wants to direct us so that we can be a blessing to others. Go and live a holy life so that God can be honored.
Alrighty. That was a good one.
I told you all I know and made up a little.
I would expect nothing less.
Thank you.
Good last night. Like it.
Have
Morning.
a good week.
You too. I saw your pictures at Marathon.
Oh, yeah.
Were you making a presentation or something? Or?
They just put a congratulations for 1 year